Welcome everybody, this is Bo Adams from Unboundary in Atlanta, Georgia for the 12th videocast interview with Grant Lichtman, who's finished at least the first stage of his cross-country ed journey and now I think is in much more synthesis mode. Grant, welcome, how are you?
Well, thanks. It's good to be back in San Diego, Bo, after I think I counted up 86 days, 64 different schools, and just under 10,000 miles on the car. It's good to be back home.
Well, good. It's nice to know you're back in your own dwelling. When you and I first started this call a while ago, you mentioned the school shooting in Connecticut, which I had not heard about yet. So you and I actually got off the phone and I looked more into that, and you were kind and thoughtful enough to say that we needed to mention that piece. And we're both so very sorry for Sandy Hook Elementary School in Connecticut and for the pain and suffering that they're going through right now.
Yeah, we have a lot of friends up there, and anybody who gets to spend time in schools, boy, when these sorts of things happen at a school, it's just it's really hard. It's hard to take, and our thoughts and prayers go out to those folks. And I just have to say, Bo, and I know this may be politically incorrect to some folks, but the inability of America to reconcile the Second Amendment and what I think is just an incredibly archaic misunderstanding of that now, and hold on to that in light of giving people with mental deficiency access to weapons is just something that is so tragic, and doesn't happen almost anywhere else in the developed world. The blood is on our own hands on these things. It's just terrible.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's certainly heartbreaking and maddening to think that something could happen like this in a school.
Yeah. Well, so on to other things.
Yes, on to other things. Grant, maybe we could start with talking about your last week, concentrated in Dallas, Texas, and tell us a little bit about some of the highlights from Dallas.
Well, it was a great week, Bo, and I think one of the big takeaways was the several schools that I visited. There's a really intentional, strong focus on what we're calling school innovation. These were schools that are not treating this as an organic development at all. It was interesting that of the 3 or 4 schools that I visited, there seemed to be some sort of correlative focus on certainly on STEM, very strong STEM programs, on leadership development, and on community engagement. Those seem to be 3 through-going threads. I think one of the things that is happening there is in Dallas. You obviously have it's a very intelligent, modern community, universities around, industry, and the families in those areas. Certainly, the families that are looking at independent schools are demanding that schools take a hard look at what they're teaching and how we're preparing our students. It's a competitive market, and so the independent schools are they're not able to rest on their laurels. They have to really be looking at what the future holds and demands in order to maintain their value propositions. And what was fabulous was to see my visit at Townview Magnet School, Townview Center Magnet School, a public school, which is ranked as one of the top public schools in the country in terms of their academic success. The fact that they're developing this program under the auspices of teacher Aaron Baldridge, that's so much like the Falconer class, so much like Synergy 8 class that you taught, that's really giving students the opportunity to find out for themselves what their passions are, and doing that in a public school setting very much like the private schools were. So there was a lot of synergy there amongst those schools in Dallas, with some really intentional focus on changing what the face of learning looks like.
Yeah, it was nice for you to connect Aaron and me, and Jill Goff and I had a great Skype conversation with him, I guess closer to the end of the summer, and talking with him about his course. And I then received an email from him not too long ago about reaching out to mentors for students. So a great example of kind of breaking that barrier between the school walls and the school campus, and thinking of the various teachers in the virtual world for those students to help them grow and mature in their project formation.
Yeah, and if I could just wrap that thought up, and maybe this is just a good fitting wrap to, I'm bringing up a slide that I'm preparing for a TEDx talk. Just a great, I think, way to end the whole trip. When I sat and talked with the students at both Townview and then at several of the other schools I visited, Hockaday, Parish Episcopal, and Greenhill, I had a chance to talk with both middle and high school students and really ask them the question, what are you getting out of these experiences that maybe what a lot of people think of as non-traditional courses, and what do you want to get out of your school? What do you think are the important skills that you're going to need going forward, and that you're getting from some of the classes that maybe we as educators wouldn't have offered even just a few years ago? And I can't think of a better way to articulate what we as educators should be paying attention to and why we should be innovating the way we are. Here's the list that I came up with that captures what the students are telling us, what the skills that students want. And these are middle and upper school students: persistence, confidence, resilience, patience, openness, creativity, adaptability, courage, perspective, empathy, and self-control. And that's the list that comes out of the mouths of students who are saying, A, this is what we want, and B, this is what we get if you create an engaged learning environment. What a great roadmap for all of us.
Yeah, you and I have talked about that many, many times, about the role of engagement and students feeling like what they're doing is relevant to the world, that what they're doing is meaningful to the world, and that they see a purpose for what they're doing in school.
Yeah, and I always, as we've talked before, I keep trying to abstract higher and higher to capture more and more of these lessons in one place. And I think that engagement is one of the things that trumps both content. There's the whole discussion of content versus context. The whole discussion of should we be teaching more foundational knowledge or skills, and I actually think the students don't care about it. I think if we engage the students in a way that they're going to understand the relevance, what I've seen from all these visits that I've been on is they will fill that vacuum. They will spend the energy. They will take the time. They will wade through the mounds of content if they need to, if they understand the relevance of what they're learning. And so I think that leading point of engagement is going to be one of the big key takeaways. And that's something that as educators, we can work with our teachers to give them the tools to answer that question. How do I create a more engaging learning experience in the classroom, inside or outside of the classroom?
Yeah, and I think such a key dimension of that is just us educators thinking, what is it that engages us most? Many of us in our adult lives aren't going and sitting in a lecture-based format every single day, and certainly there are times when we do that and the setting and the modality's right, but if we just think about what engages us and what causes our learning excitement to turn on, I think that's a good point in the right direction too.
Well, and I think that's why you hear the same things from sixth graders as you do from 12th graders, as you do from college students or professionals, as you say. These are timeless. They're not 21st century, and they're ageless. They're whether it's 5-year-olds at a progressive preschool, some of those that I visited, or high school students who are headed off to some of the best colleges. We're hearing the exact same things, and I think that's what we need to pay attention to.
Yeah. Well, they were exciting blog posts that last week. I think I imagine some of that's you developed and honed your skills of what you were really looking for in schools. But why do you think it also seemed that Dallas was just a hotbed for innovation? It reminded me of when you were in Memphis, that week in Memphis. What do you think's causing that concentration of innovation?
Oh, I think in Dallas it's pretty clear. Most of these schools, well, all three of the independent schools I visited are in North Dallas. I could have visited another 3 or 4 in that same area. This is a competitive market. The public schools are generally not very good in Dallas itself. They really struggle. But in North Dallas, you've got a relatively affluent population, a number of independent schools, and they understand that they have to leverage leverage their value proposition. They have to communicate that value proposition. And if they just offer the same traditional program that they were offering 10 or 20 years ago, they're not going to stack up very well against the folks across town. It was pretty clear to me that that's what's driving it.
Yeah. Well, let's turn now to where you are in the phase of your journey. The actual road trip has ended, but tell us a little bit about how you're synthesizing the last 12 weeks. I see some cork boards behind you with index cards. Tell us how you're organizing your thoughts around the collective.
Well, if there's anybody out there who knows how to create a hologram out of a set of thoughts, I'd really appreciate that, because what I'd love to do is just take everything that's in my head and sort of explode it out holographically. But since that's not possible with current technology, we've got to practice what we preach. We've got to, I'm essentially doing a sort of a massive affinity mapping project right now. I've already made some good progress with that. I've been going back through all of my blogs and through the several matrices that I was capturing of both obstacles and opportunities, best practices as I was on the road, and really sort of affinity mapping those in to try to understand where the buckets of both product and process that make some schools successful, obviously show that they're farther down the pathway of a truly innovative learning experience, and what are some of the obstacles that are preventing other schools from getting there. I'm trying to do this within a time frame and a context of a number of talks that I have coming up, both at national conventions in February, TEDx Denver in March, and then a number of the regional independent school associations have hired me to come and talk with now business officers, admissions officers, and heads. And so really trying to, kind of put this information together in ways that will be good for others to not only learn from it, but also to be more engaged in active learning workshops, both with these programs that I've been hired to do, as well as, of course, in preparation for the summer conference of the Martin Institute in Memphis that we're putting together right now, that will be very much focused on active learning by the participants. So a lot of that's going on at the same time, and it's helping me sort of summarize all these thoughts and put them into effective buckets for communication, hopefully.
That's great. And so will those synthesized thoughts, will we get to see future and more blog posts as you're putting the pieces together?
Well, that's a that's a good question. I do want to write a book, and you have mentioned some really intriguing options for how that might be published, and hopefully you and I will be able to talk about that. Whether this comes out as a standard book, I'd love to hear from publishers or publisher editors who might be interested in that, or whether we do something more creative, more of a serialized version that has links to a lot of the video that I've collected, video interviews with some really great educators around the country. I don't really know that yet, and I haven't decided yet, but I do want to get this out. At some point I have to monetize it, or my wife will not be happy with the 12 weeks that I spent on the trip, and so it may be that I have to do this in a way that generates some leverage and monetizes it for my future, as opposed to just completely giving it away for free, which is what I'd like to do. If I had a MacArthur grant sitting in my bank account, that's what I would do for sure.
Yeah. Well, over Christmas break, I'm going to try an experiment of putting my changed what if 60-60-60 post into an iBook author format, for no other reason than just the fun of learning that, and hopefully being able to tell you what the advantages of iBook author and that kind of distribution method might be.
Yeah, that'd be great. Great way to move forward. And I know that one thing you and I have talked a lot about, and that I'm certainly going to be thinking about more, is how do we capture and leverage all the great work that's going on out there and allow people to be more connected to it on a much more high frequency basis. Yep,
absolutely. In the connection economy, we certainly need connection education.
Yep.
Well, you mentioned the Martin Institute. Just a quick shout out to Jamie Field Baker, and congratulations to her at being appointed the new executive director of the Martin Institute there in Memphis.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't say, too many times what vision those folks have, the Martin Institute have asked me to help them with their visioning going forward. So I'll be working with Jamie and Lee Burns and on what the next steps are for the Martin Institute. I think they have incredible upside as a national organization as opposed to a regional organization, and so I'm really looking forward to doing some work here in the next few months with Jamie and Lee on that.
That's great. Well, we look forward to more blog posts, a book in the future, and hearing your TEDx talk, as well as some of the other talks hopefully will be taped and broadcast online.
Yeah, they will be, absolutely. So, well, and Bo, again, so much appreciate your help and Unboundary's help and interest in following along on this. It's just invaluable. What you folks are doing in terms of putting this into some real frameworks that schools are going to be able to use. It's great work, and I certainly hope to be part of that in some way going forward, because you all are touching on such important areas with your capacity and your internal capacities there for true design thinking as applied to education.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, and absolutely, and having a good time doing it. And in some ways, you and I are the bookends, the West Coast and the East Coast bookends. All right, well, signing off on these dozen Ed Journey videocasts from Unboundary with Grant Lichtman. And Grant, it's been a pleasure and honor to follow along with you on your path.
And for me as well, Bo. Thanks very much.
Take care.
Yeah.